So with that, I would like to call to order the regular board meeting, the Board of Park Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District of November 22, 2021. Marshall, would you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Beeler?
Here.
Commissioner Lane?
Here.
Commissioner Raymore?
Here.
Commissioner Reeder?
Here.
Commissioner Welsh, absent. Commissioner Weber?
Here.
President Greenfield.
Here. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Marshall, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reeder?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. If we have any visitors who would like to make statements, these would be statements about issues not on tonight's agenda.
We have one. Deb Fisher.
Deb Fisher. Thank you. Deb?
Hi, hi everybody. I just wanted to put out a couple ideas. Some of them I think I may have emailed. So if I'm being redundant, just stop me and say you've already received it. But just to make sure, just a few ideas related to communication that I thought might make things a little bit easier and would love you to consider them. Number one, there's just 4 topics here. Number one, would you consider posting the meeting packets, not just the agendas? I think they could just be dated. I know that one concern was that they maybe become out of date. The packet changes before the meetings. But I think if you just date them or say draft or do some, I'm sure there's some legalese that could happen that would alert people that things can change before the meeting, that at least people would have access to the packets, and that might be helpful in terms of transparency and in terms of just people understanding things. The second thing would be that with the goal of mutual transparency, I guess, I think it would be great if on topics, especially that generate a lot of public opinion, maybe posting the emails that people send in, which could then be attached to that particular meeting packet. The Village of Lake Bluff does it, the City of Lake Forest does it, you know, especially when people are passionate about things. And you could just alert people that at a certain date, you're going to start doing this process. Because, you know, I understand that people want the park district to be accountable, but I think it also helps then make people accountable, because if I'm sending you an email, I should be willing to be public about what I'm sending you. I think it helps foster transparency for the park district. I think it can also encourage people to consider other ideas. I know at times when I've read other people who I respect and I see that they've written in on a topic, I think about it, you know, and I consider what they have to say about it, and I may change my opinion based on that. I think it can keep email conversations more civil. Maybe they already are, but just in case. And I think it also tracks who has opinions. I know in some of the instances, let's say that on a topic at the Village of Lake Bluff, maybe there are 100 responses to things, but of the 75, you know, but 75 of the 100 are from 5 families. So that's a little bit different when I'm flipping through all those emails to then thinking that there's 100 people who have commented on a variety of things. The third thing is just maybe at future park district meetings, you could use PowerPoints or shared screens, especially when it's kind of a lot of information or math or budgets or things like that. Just to more clearly communicate with visuals, especially when it's a kind of complex topic. Much clearer to see numbers, especially and bullet points and things like that with a PowerPoint or a shared screen. And then, and I apologize, I have not been on the website in the past week or so. It's been a crazy one, but I was going to strongly advise the use of fax or something like that to update objective information on the website. I know that recently there'd been conversation about misunderstandings and miscommunication about topics. and maybe just putting out some facts would be helpful. So, and, you know, would be helpful for people who have other information floating on Facebook or wherever else. You can't control that, but you control your website. So anyway, I just wanted to put those ideas out there and thank you for considering them.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you. If there are no more statements from visitors, we can move on to verbal communication. Staff, John, do you want to
Yeah, we
add to this?
we have just any information that we've put in our report, so I don't have anything new to add this evening.
It looks to me like the fitness is moving up a little bit. We're getting a little bit better numbers now on fitness.
Oh, I was on mute. This is Sue. Can I ask John a real quick question? In a communication I had earlier this week with you and Paul indicated that you were spending an inordinate amount of time on the wetlands. Can you kind of summarize the actions maybe that you've taken related to wetlands, unless you're going to include it later in the discussion?
I think that'd be for later in the discussion, Sue.
Is that when we talk about the wetlands?
When we
Build
talk
their-
about the task force.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Jim is not on the call, I guess.
Jim is on vacation this week, so he is off this evening.
Man alive, you're taking Thursday off and Jim is on vacation this week. I don't know what is going on. It's a nice week to take off.
It's quiet.
But it's good to see those numbers turning around a little bit.
Yeah, we always do get a boost in the fitness, you know, when the kids come home from college on break and we get quite a few in working out.
John, I had a quick question
Yes.
about the fitness center. I know it's in the back about like doing cross memberships for the pool and the fitness. Any thoughts on like family memberships? I know we do the 10% discount, but any discussion about family memberships for the fitness center?
You know what, I'd have to check with both Jim and Mark. I've not been a part of any conversations that included a family fitness membership, but they may have. I'm not sure. I'll make a note and I will check with them and see if that's been brought up, and if not, we'll discuss that idea.
Any other questions or comments for staff?
I just want to say the family that plays together stays together.
I like that idea.
Okay, we'll go to committee reports. Committees were busy these last couple of weeks. Scott, you've got a bunch of things on the agenda. Is there anything else from the Finance Committee that you want to report here? And you're on mute and you look like you may be frozen, Scott. There's, again, Scott. Okay.
No comment?
There he is.
Scott, you're on mute, I think.
My laptop died, so I had to switch. Was there a question? I missed it. I apologize.
I was just saying, Finance Committee has a number of things on the agenda tonight. Is there anything else that's not on the agenda that you want to report on?
No, we'll get to everything that we discussed at our meeting last week.
Okay. Parks and Beach had a record-setting meeting in terms of length of time, I understand. Jennifer, do you want to summarize your 2-hour and 45-minute meeting?
Yes, do we have another 2 hours and 45 minutes? I apologize for subjecting everybody to that marathon section, and I will make sure that my comments are much shorter than that. To quickly summarize, we approved a number of capital improvements for the beach, especially with the tilted stairs and some other things that we'd like to add to the budget for the upcoming year. We reviewed the AECOM study on the Far North Beach Cove, otherwise known as Dog Beach, and also looked at some very good increases to the rentals for the beach shelters because of the usage and the revenue that we could produce on those. So.
Good. Any questions there, anyone? All right, Emily, Facilities and Programs Committee.
Nothing new. We haven't had a meeting.
Okay. But you're planning one, I understand. Friends of Lake Bluff Parks, Nikki's not here, but John, you were at their last meeting, and then I have something to report on this as well.
Yes, there wasn't, trying to just check back and see what we talked about at the last meeting. We do have another meeting coming up on, I think the first week of December. And yeah, there was some discussion about some different fundraising. I guess methods that they're talking about, whether it's they have a subcommittee that's doing some fundraising to help with the beach, and talking about hosting a gala and doing some different events that would help raise funds for that. And there was just recapping some of the recent the events that the foundation was also involved in, the ceremony for the ribbon cutting for both the Sunrise Park and also the pickleball, and some discussion about selling gear, some garments. I think they may have been in contact with Commissioner Lane. That's about all that I see. From the friends. Did you say that you also had some comments about that, Paul? Or
Well, not about this. I spoke with John Hirsch, which, if the board remembers, a few meetings ago, I was given the task of talking with John about when the Friends will spend money that they may have raised for certain things like the beach. And I think I had two takeaways from my discussion with John. Number one, logically, number one, they don't want to be holding money in their accounts for several years with nothing happening. So when they talk about raising money for the beach, John said he would talk with the board, with the Friends board, about not committing to anything right this minute, because within perhaps a year, if we go to a referendum in a year or whatever, we would know whether we're going to be doing anything relative to the beach or not, where we're going to need that money, and it may be important to use that in a way that they're not necessarily planning for. So he said he would definitely work with us on that. I think the other takeaway from this was that while the Friends have made a commitment to raise $1 million towards the beach over the next 10 years, it's not a commitment that anyone is going to pledge their eldest children to, okay? They're going to do their best, and they're going to recognize that they need to raise money and that they should be raising money for the beach. But that should not be going into the budget. We should not be booking that as revenue quite yet. And, you know, as he explained it, 10 years is a long time. It's one thing if you say over the next year, we'll raise $40,000 for pickleball, which would be nice to see. But over 10 years, you have different trustees, different ideas, different things happen. And he said, realistically speaking, and I don't mean to be glib about this, realistically speaking, we can't count on that money. Once it's raised, that's fine, we'll have it, we can use it. The money that they have raised so far is certainly available towards the beach. There's $132,000 in their account. I don't know how much of that is dedicated to the beach versus other things. But But it's not, we have to understand that as we go through the process of looking for finances for various projects we may have. So potentially a very short-term commitment might work. A longer-term, larger commitment is a goal, but not something we should be counting on. So that was the thrust of my meeting.
I would just add two things from their last meeting. They did appoint two new members for the foundation, which is good news. So that was Brett Warney and Margaret Baroni. And they also reappointed Brian Woodruff for another term and reappointed Trustee Adams as the treasurer for another term. So those were done at the last meeting.
And I would say, and we're not on the budget part, but you know, Jennifer, I think you mentioned the stairs, finishing the stairs down to the north, to the north part of the Central Beach. That certainly, if we decided to go ahead with that, if the board decided to go ahead with that, that would certainly be something that I think the Friends would be ready, willing, and able to support financially. But again, that's if we go ahead with it and how we decide to proceed with various things on the beach. Okay, any other questions regarding the Friends? Any commissioner comments?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Something happened a couple months ago, or Brad Anderson, one of our residents, mentioned something a couple weeks ago, and it kind of resonated with me. I'd like to propose that when we do our agendas, we follow the Robert Rules of Orders as it relates to motions, so that when we have a motion, we put a motion in, we second the motion, and then we have our conversation prior to the vote. I think it makes it a little bit smoother and more understandable as to what's happening, and that is the Robert Rule. So I don't know if we can maybe talk about that or consider that on an agenda item or how we do that, but I think that would be, we are supposed to be following Robert's rules, correct?
We are.
So we aren't as it relates to motions, because we tend to have our conversation first and then we do a motion and then we immediately vote. So I'm asking that we follow Robert's rules and we do the motion and the second and then have the discussion. Anybody questions, comments? Okay.
No, just to say that I agree with that. I think that makes more sense from a flow and understanding of the actual motion. So I would agree with Sue on that.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
I have no problem with that, but you know, I think we both need to, most people here need to educate themselves as to what that actually is. It's like retraining your brain for those of us who've sat in these things for long enough.
Yeah. Well, there's been a couple times when it's been a little interesting, and like I said, Brad Anderson mentioned it, so I thought it would be worthwhile throwing it out. I'd be happy to share some information if that would help everybody.
Sure.
And it's a learning too. We get in habits and do it. Jennifer, any thoughts on that or? Okay. Couple things related to policy. We have a policy, I notice, and our policy states that the packet will be prepared no later than the Thursday before the board meeting. Wondering if it might be a stretch. I know everyone's busy, but could we strive to achieve that? It's getting later and later, and it's getting really hard on these 100-page packets to get through before the board meeting. So I'm just asking that we get back to the policy.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
I understand if it takes a couple, we're real busy right now with budget. So if it doesn't happen until 2022, I'm okay with that. And then I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Deb Fisher said. I also think that in the vein of transparency that we consider putting the packet out when we publish the agenda. So I'll just leave it at that and we can talk about that hopefully at another meeting. That's all.
Good. Any other commissioner comments? The only thing I would say under President's report is that we are officially starting our tri-board commission meetings again. And we have scheduled in general the first Monday, is it? Or Wednesday of each month, where John and I will be meeting with Drew Irvin and Mark Berry and Regis, Regis and Drew Irvin and Mark Berry. And I'm sorry, I don't know the school, the superintendent's name. I've forgotten that, but we are going to meet as a more official tri-board. You know, Mark and Regis and I have met casually just to go over some issues from time to time. And we're going to start that officially in December. And that is all I have to report. We now have the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from October 25 and November 8, the invoice schedule for October 21, 2021, and the period ending November 18, and purchase cards ratification. Does anybody have any questions on any of these items? I'm sorry. I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, does anybody have, sorry.
That's good, Paul. That's awesome.
Hey, Sue, you're talking retraining my brain. This is not going to be.
Hey,
I
me
can tell
too.
you.
So
Does anyone have any questions or comments about this? About any of these items?
No.
Okay, Marcia, can we have a roll call, please, to approve the consent agenda?
Sure. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. All right, moving right along, finance. Year-to-date financial report and 2021 projections.
So we were going to do it a little bit differently on this one. We were going to go ahead and share the screen. I think that was a good suggestion, be able to put up the finance report while Josh is going through it. All right, Josh, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So yeah, for year-to-date revenue, right now the general fund is over budget by $79,000. Again, mainly due to property taxes received. Currently, the Park District received 96.14% of their property taxes for the year. We'll receive one more payment this year for 2021 taxes, and then one payment in the beginning of next year for 2021. The rec fund year-to-date revenue is over budget $216,000, and that increase is mainly due to rec programs $193,000, and pool $63,000. Year-to-date expenses for rec are over budget $12,000 due to personnel services being over budget $65,000, commodities $1,600, and contractual services $43,000. So on page 32, it shows this is entity-wide. So revenues are over budget $425,570. Property taxes are $173,000. That should say above budget, which includes $72,000 from the 2019 final payment that we received this year, but it was too late to move back because the audit was already done. Fees and admissions are $6,000 below budget, and then a little bit of the breakdown of some of the reasons why Sunrise Park and Beach is $3,400 below Health and fitness is 17,648 below. Bracket sports is 13.5 below, and the pool is 28.5 above budget. With programs and lessons, we're $175,000 over budget. Sunrise is Park and Beach is over budget, $7,500. Rec programs, $197,870. And then there's a breakout of the rec programs. Of that, the main one that's over is preschool, $68,000, and camps, $87,000. Health and fitness is $9,600 below budget. Racket sports is $27,000 below budget, with tennis being below $24,000, paddle being above $1,300, and pickleball below $4,000. Some operating expenses. Right now, operating expenses are $9,400 below budget. Personnel services are $81,000 above budget. Park maintenance is below $22,600. Sunrise Park and Beach was above $25,000, and that's mainly to do with opening and having the lifeguards earlier on in the season than budgeted. Rec programs, $55,000. Same thing with COVID, we budgeted conservatively. Health and fitness is below $6,300. Racket sports is below $25,000, and pool is below or above $40,000. Commodities are $6,000 above year-to-date budget. Contractual services are $96,000 below year-to-date budget, partially due to timing of expenses.
So Josh, excuse me, are those contractual services going to hit in November or December?
Yeah, we do have plenty of expenses coming in still throughout, through the end of the year. You'll see in the budget where it has the projections in there,
Right.
where we're projecting will be for the end of the year.
Okay.
For capital and debt, capital is about $82,000 above budget. And that's mainly due to not budgeting for the full preschool. We budgeted partial preschool with the donations from the friends, instead of budgeting for the full preschool and then a revenue line item for the friends donation. The Blair pickleball and tennis courts and the Artesian basketball courts were not in the budget originally. Debt service is on budget, and the next we'll have some larger payments in December and January. For the projections, let me switch over. So I did make one change with the 2020 numbers. It was including the refinance of the 2013 bonds originally in the contractual services. So I did take that out because it was kind of just a wash. It was an audit journal entry. So this is just the new, the projections are the same, but the operating expenses for 2020 are different. So for the projections overall, we're $353,000, $296 above year-to-date budget for entity-wide. Revenues are $425,000 above year-to-date. Operating expenses are $9,400 below year-to-date budget, and capital and debt services are $81,680 above the budget for the end of the year. Oh, that was the wrong. That was 2021 still. So here's the projection. Sorry about that. So for the projections, we're projecting $367,000 above 2021's budget, with revenues being $508,000 above budget, operating expenses $50,000 above budget, capital and debt services are projected $90,000 above budget. With the projections in special rec, projected revenues are $23,700 due to the amount of property taxes, and we're estimating a $10,500 from the NSRA sale of their Northbrook building. We should be receiving that check in 2021. And projected expenditures for special rec are $3,600 under budget. And then with capital for our projections, here's just a list of some the projects we've done this year. With the we finished up the Sunrise Beach entrance, beach revetment project, Blair Park and pickleball and tennis courts. With that, the Friends agreed to pay the $40,000 over the next 3 years. The West Playground, the paddle court heaters, the preschool playground, which was partially funded by the Friends, and the artesian basketball courts. Does anyone have any questions?
This seems to be pretty much in line with last month's as well. I mean, it's all
Yeah, there wasn't too many changes to the
pressing
projections.
normally, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I didn't ask, normally I don't even remember that we have to accept this, so sorry for not having a motion beforehand. Can I please get a motion to accept the financial reports as presented?
So moved. Second.
Got Elaine.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Got Elaine. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Thank you, Josh. All right, continuing with old business. The board policy is actually to ask for community comments prior to the discussion of each item on the agenda. So, which is not what was done last time. So I would ask if we have any comments to be made prior to any agenda item, please do it then. If we can then go to an update on the status of the task force. John, do you want to please update us on what's going on with that?
Sure. So following the discussion with the board at the last meeting, I've reached out to the former members of the Land Use Advisory Committee and asked them if they would be interested in serving on a new community task force to examine these the issues that we're looking at. So of the 9 that were on the committee, I've heard back from 4 that have said yes, and 1 that had a couple of questions. Not sure whether they were going to serve again or not. So there's still a few more that I was obviously that we had that I'd like to hear back from, and so I'm thinking that I can probably reach out to them by next week by phone if I've not heard back from them, and then hopefully for our December meeting that's coming up, we would have the actual names ready for the board to make the appointments of that task force at that meeting. I did meet with one of the former co-chairs of the task force, the former task force, who came in and met with me to talk a little bit about the scope of what they would be working on and looking into. And you know, this individual was very interested and in helping out and taking a look at the issues, and also thought that they could reach out to a couple of those former members of the task force that we haven't heard from, that they, you know, this person could probably convince them to come back and serve again on the current task force. So if we have, you know, I don't know how the board feels about it, but I would say if we, you know, it's quite possible we may end up with 7 or possibly 8 of the former members coming back, and of the original 9. And I don't know if you still feel we need to get any replacements, or if, that would be adequate to move forward with the task force. I think in our policy manual, it says that it can be anywhere from 5 to 9 members. And so I'm sure we're going to be somewhere in between there, because we're already at 4 of the first 5 responses. So if the board has any feelings about that or questions, or whether you want me to just bring those names for the
John,
next meeting.
What's the timeline? Like, how long has it been since you sent the letter out?
The letter just went out last week. It took some just going, back and forth with getting the wording, having to get the wording from the, the meeting, from the video, and do a letter that then was, I had to get over to Paul for his signature and back for my signature and then sent out. So that was just sent out last week.
So it's only been a couple days. I know we talked on Thursday. Okay, so that it's not unusual that some people haven't gotten back to you yet.
No, that's why I was going to give it about another week and then reach out by phone and try to touch base with them.
John, could you forward us the letter that was sent to the committee members, potential committee members? That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I know we've discussed it already before in our last meeting, talking about, how we want the task force to look. I know we talked about really wanting to shoot for 9 members of the task force. So, of course, if anyone feels differently, that's a discussion point, but I think it's a hefty task that will require a variety of skills and input. And I think a 9-person task force would be most beneficial.
I would agree. I think we know when people are if anyone declines, I think we said the next step would be we would try to get someone from the same group.
Yeah.
If it was like I know the school board was one person and the village was somebody. Should we act on quickly to try to get replacements, or just if we wait every 2 weeks for the new update, it may just take a long to get this done. I don't, if you have any thoughts on that, John.
I would at least wait until I've been able to call and try to contact each of the former members, which I can do that a little bit sooner. I could do that yet this week.
It is a holiday.
It's a holiday week, I know, for a lot, so I'm not sure if they'll be answering my call, but that's why I was thinking that I would do it early next week, in that, what I could do is when I reach out, and if I'm finding out that we do get a few that say they do not want to come back, for sure I can, look for those replacements. I know that there was some discussion of that at the last meeting. Again, I didn't know if you meant, if we only had 4 or 5 that responded that wanted to do it, and 4 or 5 that didn't want to do it, then we really would be a stronger need to get more members to try to get, a full task force. But if we have 7 or 8 that return, do you feel comfortable with that, or you still want us to try to?
What seems to me,
up to 9?
The language around the task force was such that if the task force felt they needed more members, they could select some for themselves to put back to add to the task force. If that's the case, then going in a little bit less than, in my opinion, would be okay. But I don't want to strap them in an impossible situation with not having enough members.
Don't we have to appoint the task force members?
I think if you look at that language, it said that we may have to approve them, but I think it said that they can add some if they feel it's necessary. That was language that I saw the last meeting.
In the board policy?
Yes.
Let's double check on that. And then in the meantime, John, if you can reach out maybe tomorrow, I think all rolling on that. And then if you don't hear back, maybe touch base early next week with a follow-up phone call. And then, really we got to start going to option B to try and fill these slots. I don't really see any point in waiting, albeit a holiday week.
Okay. I can do that. Actually, I feel pretty good about the responses I've seen so far. I think, like I said, most of them are pretty positive. I think one had a few questions and then that I answered, and then they said they would serve. The others have just come back and said that they would serve. Again, there's just, one more that may have a couple of reservations, but, most of them that I'm hearing from seem pretty willing to come back and serve again. So hopefully that'll continue with the others. But yeah, I'm happy to reach out and try giving them a call tomorrow just to speed the process up a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I just, we're kind of playing with borrowed time here a little bit, so the sooner the better.
I think realistically, if we want to get the task force started in January, December, we're not going to get anything done. If we can have it appointed by December, then in January, they could start their work. So that, the committee of the whole meeting coming up would be a great time to do it, but we have the regular meeting as well, which still leaves us, I think, a little time if we want alternative. Then I think the decision will be made, because we said, okay, if it's not someone from an organization, then we want to get applications. That's something, that I think we'd have to take a look at, because the applications would take time. But let's not get the cart before the horse. Let's see who responds, and then we can make some decisions on that, I think. Any other questions for John on the task force update? Okay. Pool update. I would first like to say on the pool, we have here approval, and that's, I had John put that in the agenda in case we wanted to take a vote on something. Because if we don't set it out to take a vote on something, then we can't take a vote. I didn't expect there to be any vote. I didn't expect there to be any final decisions on the pool tonight, but that's why it's in there. It's not in there because anyone is expecting any decisions. And so I am therefore not going to propose a motion. However, we have a lot of information here, and I would like to start off by thanking, and I think I can thank on behalf of the board, Ray Lee and Rich Clark and their companies for doing this work and for providing this information to us, a lot of really detailed information that they provided to us free of charge, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we owe them a big debt of thanks. This was a lot of work, and we really appreciate it. With that, John, you want to take this over, please?
Sure. So we did have those two were able to come out, and again, Ray, for those of you that might not have heard it before, Ray Lee was involved with the work that was done about 5 or 6 years ago on the pool, the referendum work, and updates, along with the facility study back in 2009 or 2010. Rich Clark also is with WT Engineering. It's his specific company is Innovative Aquatics, but it's under the WT group. Has done some work with our pool in the past. So they were both familiar with the facility, and that helped. They did meet with Noah and Micah and myself out here to go through the pool leak reports and to walk through the facility and kind of get another look. And then went back and put this fairly detailed information together. So you're right, I echo the same thanks for them spending that time and yet not charging us for that. Basically, they agreed that we could probably get a couple more seasons out of the pool the way it is, with doing some work to it. Of course, we risk, there being a problem every year, with a facility that's 47 years old. When we operate for the summer, we kind of hold our breath and try to get through the summer with the number of issues that we have. They've agreed that we can get through a couple of, their opinion is that we can get through a couple more seasons, that we should be planning to either do either major renovation or replacement of the pool at that point, because it'll be getting close to its 50-year mark and needing either needing to have quite a bit of money put into it just to keep it running, or just risking a catastrophic failure during the season. So what they've included here, and in getting through the next couple of summers, that would mean doing that, fixing that surge pit, and that's going to be a fairly costly fix, as it's listed in there for possibly $30,000 to $40,000. But that's really where they felt we're losing a lot of water, and if that fails during the summer, the pool's going to be shut down as soon as that fails, and then depending on the timing to get it fixed, we may not be able to reopen. So we would want to do that before we open the pool next summer. So with that, they give us basically three different options. And so the one is a renovation, but it's really a major renovation. So we're talking about pulling the deck out, removing the concrete deck, replacing all of the plumbing, putting in a dewatering system around the perimeter of the pool to pump the water away from the pool, the groundwater that we're getting in through the cracks in the pool now, and water's collecting under the liner. There'd be, of course, a new liner, but when the liner is removed, they would be doing some crack filling and repairing the concrete, a whole new gutter system, everything you can see is kind of listed in my memo on page 36, bringing up the locker room to new ADA standards or codes, replacing the lighting, just doing quite a bit of work to really address all of the problem areas and extend the life of the facility. So they estimated that to be about $3.8 to $4.3 million for a major renovation. They're estimating that, with some inflation, they're estimating that for a project in starting in fall of 23. The two new pool options, you can see for just the new pool concept, that's starting on page 37. That has a range of $6.6 million to $7.3 million. And that's, again, a fairly modest community pool. That's not building a water park or a lot of features into that pool, but it is a brand new everything, pretty much, pool and deck, and completely, rehabbing the locker rooms. And then the other option is the combined pool concept. And so the first pool concept, the more expensive one, has two separate bodies of water. You have your leisure lap pool, and then you have your dive pool. In a lot of newer designs, they separate those into two separate bodies of water. So if you have a problem where, say, someone gets sick and throws up in one body of water and you have to close it to superchlorinate it, you can keep the other body of water going because that typically has a separate filter system. We asked them about pricing to combine those just to save money, and that is about $500,000 that saves if you combine that. So you lose some of that flexibility of having two separate bodies of water, but you save some money there. So that's kind of savings that you see in that combined pool option. And then kind of the last thing that they mentioned, again, with the major renovation, they could really only say, that the life would be approximately 15 years. Maybe you'd get a little bit longer, maybe not. The problem with that is it's still using the original concrete walls and floor of the pool. And if a wall fails because of its age and the pressure, then that's gonna, be major event for it. So with a new pool, you're looking at a longer lifespan because everything is new, concrete, your Schedule 80 PVC pipe, everything that goes into the new pool it would be obviously put in new. So there's a longer estimated life of possibly 30 to 40 years. So, and as we know, we've gotten 47 years out of our current facility with some patching up. With any one of these options, the tot pool would be incorporated into this into these options so that it's still in good shape. It has a separate filter system. So that's definitely been taken into consideration. So that's kind of a rundown on the three options that were sent to us. Are there any questions?
John, I have two questions. One, did both parties recommend the liner?
Replacing the liner?
Yeah.
If we did the renovation, they recommended replacing the liner and said that, again, even if you got 15 or more years out of that renovated pool, you're still going to have to probably change the liner. It's a typical 10 or 12 year life on that.
Yeah, I misspoke. They recommended repairing the surge pit before the opening of the next summer. Okay, yeah. So if we dump 40 grand into that, and then we either decide to renovate or a new pool, are we just lighting that on fire? We can't use it with the new facility?
Correct. Yeah, they're talking either with the renovation or the new pool. There's going to be they're going to add on to the filter room and enlarge it, and so that whatever work we do in the surge pit to try to patch it and get a few more years out of it would be torn out.
Yeah. Okay. And then secondly, the new pool concept, is that for the I guess, how big of a pool is that? A 25-meter pool or is that a 50-meter pool?
It would be close to the same footprint. I don't know if we'd have. There'd definitely be some lap lanes. I don't remember if we'd have the 50-foot length with the combined one. The new one is going to be shorter. The new one would certainly not be 50 meters. It's going to be, you would have probably more common 25-yard lap lane area or lap swimming area, but it's not going to have the 50-meter with the new pool concept because that's broken into two pools.
Okay. That's all.
Well, obviously, this is a tough choice, I think. Emily and I had been talking earlier, and what we were talking about is that perhaps at this stage, and John, I don't know if Ray and Rich would be able to come back to a committee meeting to answer questions, if that's something we could arrange, and obviously come back, on Zoom, so it's not physically coming back. We're faced with a question: do we spend $4 million and get 15 years out of a renovated pool, or do we spend, $6.5 or $7 million and get 30 to 40 years out of a pool? We'd all like 30 or 40 years, but $2.5 million is real money. And so there's some choices there. It's not, initially, I think we were looking at a much smaller difference. When we were kind of throwing numbers around, we were looking at a much smaller difference, where I think most of us were thinking it doesn't pay to do a renovation when you can get 30 or 40 years by spending a little bit more money. This is not a little bit more money, it's a pretty fair amount of money. So I think there are questions in terms of, and Emily, you brought some points up with me, in terms of what kind of pool we actually want to have, which, you know, certainly goes to what we do. And just perhaps to dive into these numbers, sorry about that. Dive into these numbers a little bit more for the committee at least to come up with some initial recommendations. In terms of what we think the best alternatives might be. I think with 7 of us on the board, we have the potential to have 7 different opinions on this. And like I say, it's a tough question. It's very difficult.
I'd say one of the questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
I was gonna say that from the numbers that we had, that the finance committee and Josh prepared not too many meetings ago, this seems, any of the options seem to require some outside source of financing. And I don't know, Josh, if you've updated the numbers. I mean, our budget this year is doing better than it was initially projected to be, but we're talking a couple $100,000, not a couple $1 million.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to updating it yet. Once we get some of this budget stuff done with, definitely something I was planning on doing.
Yeah, no, but I mean, the long and the short of it is
Right.
It doesn't make a material difference of our need to go to referendum if we want to pursue either of the options of a restoration or a new pool.
And if I'm understanding the restoration option, I mean, what we were talking about before is possibly spacing out these individual items, but it looks like for economy of scale, it's better to handle all of this at one time for a $3.8 million restoration or so. Is that correct?
Yeah, the one that we were, I mean, before, I think we were just showing what it would take, to kind of keep it going, in one of those memos that, how many more years you might get out of the surge pit or the decks or the plumbing or some of those, estimated things. So this is, this is going in for the renovation, doing all of those at once. You're not doing, them one project at a time, and spreading that out.
I think one question I would have, and John, maybe you know the answer, is for, let's call it 4 million for the renovation. I'm a bit surprised that the projection would only be for 15 years on that. Meaning if we're spending $4 million, I mean, it sounds like, right, and please correct me if I misunderstood, but you're ripping up all the concrete, creating a whole new deck, right? Basically replicating the pool that we have now, right? With all new everything, including a surge pit and all new plumbing and all of that. So with basically redoing the existing pool as it is now with putting in all new stuff, do you know why it would only be projected to last 15 years versus 20 to 30, or because we're basically redoing what we already have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what they said, in that one, we're still reusing what they call the tank. So the concrete walls and the floor of the pool itself. We'd remove the gutter, that would be cut off. The whole stainless steel gutter system would be cut off, and the new gutter system would be put on. But we're using the rest of the concrete would be the original, pool floor and walls that are 47 years old. So there are cracks all the way through those now, and some spalding or chipping of the concrete. So that's under the liner, and that's where we can see some of the areas where there's bubbling in the liner, where groundwater is getting in through the pool concrete and getting caught between the old concrete and the liner. So when they would take that liner off, they would fill the cracks and patch a lot of that concrete again and put a new liner on top of that. But that's the main thing they said. That's the main thing they're concerned about, is perhaps a failure in the wall or in the floor somewhere. And that's why they couldn't really just put much more, time on an estimate of the life. It could maybe it'll last 25 years if that never happens. That was their major concern.
So again, so this renovation recommendation is to fill the cracks, right? Not to redo all of the concrete as it pertains to the pool floor and the pool walls.
Correct.
I wonder how much more it would be to do that. I'm assuming a lot more.
Yeah, that's how we get to the price of the new pool, because that's basically what
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
So the main difference is obviously with the renovation, we'd keep the exact same pool layout kind of as it is now. And we would do almost, and please correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but we do almost everything. We'd replace everything except for the concrete floor and walls of the pool. We would just fill the cracks.
Correct.
How do we get to the plumbing? Wouldn't it be difficult to get to the plumbing, or is that just all underneath the, to replace that, or is that just all underneath the deck?
Most of it's underneath the deck. When that's removed, they would be able to get at the plumbing and redo the plumbing.
Okay.
John, wasn't the last repair to the pool a new pool liner?
In 2015, a new liner was put in.
And so that was supposed to last 10 to 15 years and it only lasted 6?
Well, it's still going, but we did about a little under $5,000 worth of repairs to it this past year, and we're going to have to do probably several $1,000s worth of repairs next summer with problems we already have seen. Where the seams are coming apart or where there's some additional problems. So it's already we're already having trouble with this liner at 6 or 7 years.
So that would be my question, is what makes this new liner that we would be getting in the renovation lasting 15 years if we couldn't even get a good 6 out of the current new liner that we got? That would be my biggest question for all of this.
That's a good
I have a
question.
question to that too.
And I think that doing that crack filling and patching the concrete is going to help the liner actually last longer when it goes over top of that. So it's not allowing the groundwater to seep in and cause pressure. And, I don't know, Noah, if you had any other thoughts about that.
I just want to say something real quick too about that, because that's always been my kind of I'm trying to figure that part of it, because in the concrete pools, what I've learned from other pools that are community pools around here, most of the time people the maintenance for concrete pools is to plaster it. And so my question would be, why aren't we plastering it? And why wasn't it plastered before? But why wasn't that recommended instead of the pool liner, which is causing so many problems? Just like when Micah said that the seam lines, and then the company doesn't really actually want to, it's not even covered by the maintenance, even though it costs a lot of money. It's like how much? $100,000 for the pool liner?
Yeah, it's more than that. The patching and repairing of the concrete was done for, I know, again, you probably at least 30 years of the pool's life in the beginning, and then I think it was probably when it got to a certain point where it was, just deteriorating. They changed and did a liner on the inside. I think that is somewhat common with older pools, concrete pools.
Well, I was just talking to one of the maintenance guys at the Winter Club, and their pool was built in 1927. They have a concrete pool and they plaster it. So I'm just kind of curious to understand why their pool is 1927. So it's almost 100 years old. And so just trying to figure out how their pool is lasting for almost 100 years. Just trying to figure that out. So I would love to talk to the engineer and the architect about that.
I do think that was a good suggestion. I think that if we can have both of them attend a facility meeting, I think that would be, helpful for them to be able to answer some of these questions. I think, you're talking about an incredible exception. I don't think there's many pools that are probably more than 50 years old, outdoor public pools in this climate, in this area, but I've not looked into that pool, so I'm not sure what the design or the material or the maintenance of it is, but I think it would be beneficial to have them, come in for, if they can Zoom in for one of our committee meetings and help answer some of the technical questions. Sue, you're on mute.
The only other thing I have that kind of jumps out at me is the lights. And I know the lights, we want the lights, but where the pool's not open and we talk about, well, they get used at night by the swim team. But if we build a new pool, we're not going to be able to support the swim team without having the 50 meters. So that's another option that I think we could probably do something with without living with the lights. I don't know when the last time we actually stayed open during the evening, but it's been a while.
Yeah, those are all good questions that would really have to be carefully considered, and then the budget, for the new project, whether it's a renovation or whether it's a new pool, would have to reflect what comes out of a final plan, I guess.
Are there any drawings along plans?
These were just concept budgets.
Okay.
That
Okay.
were prepared. That's kind of as far as we could push them at this point without having to pay them money to
I understand.
prepare this.
Yep.
But what I do have, they sent me some examples of similar pools that they have built. One I think was in Deerfield and one was in Northbrook, just to give me an idea visually of what some of these would look like in some of the recent projects. And so I can send you that, but they use those for kind of doing the budget for this because they'd already, had just done a lot of this work recently.
Okay, so if we have no more comments, then
One more.
okay.
Just curious, do we have an automatic water filler for our pool?
Noah?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Emily, you've gone off video now. I don't know if you wanted to or not. There you are. All right, so then we're all hoping that Ray and Rich can come to a facilities and programs meeting that can be held as soon as it can be arranged, I guess, where you can go over these and ask them questions. Hopefully they can do it. That would be helpful. And then to discuss these options, because, Sue, what you brought up, absolutely, or I don't remember if it was Sue or Ann, I'm sorry, but, 4 million for 15 years or 6.5 to 7 million for 30 years. What's the best thing to do? And what does this mean to the community? So if we can do that, and then hopefully we'll have that report before the end of the year at one of the meetings, I hope. And then see where we go from there. Good. All right, if we can move on, the community engagement consultant. And Nikki was going to report on this, but she's not here. John, Nikki, and I attended a Zoom meeting with Paul Hanley from Beyond Your Base. I think there were two basic takeaways that I had from the meeting, and then John, you can add your parts. I mean, number one, there had always been the question of which, if we go for a referendum, and again, we haven't approved a referendum yet, but if we do, the question would be, which election would we target to do the referendum? And next year we have an election in June, not March. And then of course, one in November, the general election in November. obviously with the time that it's going to take the task force to complete its work, it would not be realistic. And what we were discussing is aiming for the June election would not be realistic because we would not have a task force report if that's what we were going to wait for before we decide on a referendum. So that would point us toward the November election. One of the issues there is that, and I don't know, John, if this was you or Paul Hanley who brought it up, but the high school is supposed to be sending out email feelers to the community about a referendum that they want to hold. And so then you get into this issue of are different referenda going to be held during the same election, which obviously is going to make it more difficult probably for everyone who's holding the referenda, who's sponsoring it. And the third item that came up that we discussed was how do we control our message? That it becomes very important if we go ahead with a referendum. How does the Park District control its message? And so I think all these issues are critical. My understanding of the next steps, we would have Beyond Your Base start doing some surveying of the community, both through email and written surveys that they mail out, which Paul really likes. He feels that it engages people more when you get a piece of paper and you send it back. And start getting a feeling for what the community really wants in terms of the beach and the pool. Again, without a commitment to hold a referendum. So we're taking initial steps. We're not going the whole way yet. John, did you have any other takeaways?
No, I think that you really kind of covered all the points. But he did stress that that community engagement, it was important to find out what the community would support, and so I do think that would be a very important, critical first part of this process.
Now, obviously, one other point, which I think we're all aware of, is that this grant that we were not going to be included in, all of a sudden is including us in the next steps. And that, of course, makes a major difference in terms of what we do and how we raise revenue for this. John, do you want to just brief us on where we stand with that?
Sure. So that's the FEMA grant to help with some of the erosion control improvements that are needed down at the beach. So we initially heard that we received a message back that we may have to, that we don't qualify for it because we didn't adopt the hazard mitigation plan, and we weren't part of developing it, and that we hadn't adopted it. So that was our first, response from the state. And then I had replied that, my understanding was that we could apply as a sub-applicant because the village has adopted it. They were part of developing that plan with the county, and they adopted it. And so then they responded with another email that said, that we were approved to go on to the next step, and includes more work doing a benefit cost analysis and some other work to do that next step. But it means we're still alive, we're still in it, so it's still possible. We're going on to the next step for that funding. And again, that was requesting $3.8 million, for that erosion control work. And this is a 75-25% grant, matching grant.
So I'm sorry, can you say those numbers again, John? The grant would be for how much?
Well, it was for, it was 3.8 million roughly. It's just a little bit over 3.8 million. And it's 75% from FEMA and 25% from us. I mean, we did put in there that we would go possibly 70-30 because they said that can include your odds a little bit in the process. So we'd go up to 30% for the Park District share.
And that is, those are funds that would specifically be used to fix the beach.
That would be used, yes, for the erosion control, you know,
Yeah.
redoing, yeah, the revetments and the groins and the work that needs to be done there.
Perfect.
If I missed this, I apologize. What's the timeline for something like this?
Well, if we need to get this next step in by, I believe it's mid-December, and then from there, if we get accepted in for the full application, they may not decide until next summer on the funding.
Summer of 22?
Yes.
Okay.
What else could we be doing to help make this happen?
I know that I've been told it's a long shot for this specific funding, and ours, like, if the village was going after this funding for its flooding to fix, you know, flooding in the streets or the underpasses, that would be a lot more in line with this sort of funding than using it for erosion, you know, projects. So they did say it's a bit of a long shot, but you know anybody at FEMA, give them a call. But I understand there's quite a bit of money for this funding, so that's one of the things that is a little bit helpful. That's money that's already in the system. It's not part of this new infrastructure bill.
Right. Are there any other resources we could utilize to increase our chances of obtaining the grant?
Is such as a lobbyist or something along that line?
I hate to say consultant again, but something, or perhaps there's a community member that we know of, or we can start networking around to see if there's someone who might be willing to donate their time to help us obtain the grant. Just brainstorming, you know, ways we could, you know, increase our chances of obtaining this. That'd be a huge deal.
No, I think, Ann, that's better than brainstorming. I think, you know, we saw the support that we seem to get from Julie Morrison, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, you know, that's something we've got to sit down and really look at, because we've got her being able to sit down with Brad Schneider, for example. We really, I think we have to put something together. I agree 100% with you that we have to put something together where we can pull out all the stops. You know, I'm thinking that with the infrastructure bill now law, so this is another $2 trillion or whatever, that puts more money into the system.
Yeah.
So it may, you know, FEMA may be able to look at something like this grant and say, you know what, we can play around with it a little bit. Maybe we don't have to be quite so specific because we've got all this money coming down the road from the infrastructure bill. And again, that's law, so that's not speculation anymore. But I agree. I think, you know, however we do, we should put our heads together and get what, you know, go to the people who we should be able to go to try to push for this.
John, George Russell had some pretty interesting pictures of before and after storms that were from the county, I guess, aerial photos. Just a thought, though, some of those might be some real tell-alls that could be persuasive.
Thank you.
So what needs to happen by mid-December then? What will you be working on, John, between now and mid-December to further our interest in this grant?
It's doing the the next level as a sub-applicant, filling out this application. So it's doing this this cost benefit analysis that we can do. AECom is assisting us with that.
Okay.
Engineers is helping us with getting that work done, and then Josh has set up. We have to have this. It's called FEMA Go portal to submit this through. So I think that's pretty much. I think that's ready. Isn't that ready to go, Josh, at this point, or where you can submit that information?
Yeah, we created a portal.
So most of the work would be with AECom and just getting, this next step done.
Okay, is there any other assistance that you need, John, to get that done?
I don't think so at this point. I think, again, thanks to AECom who has. So we work with Bill Weaver, who's the engineer who did our study here, but they have, AECom is a very large company, and they have grant writing staff. So that's who's assisting us on this.
Okay.
Because obviously, we just don't have that expertise in-house, but yeah, with that we would certainly be needing to probably hire another consultant. At this point, they've not charged us for the work in this, application process. They said if it gets to be more involved, they may need to start, passing on some sort of a fee or charge, but at this point, they've not charged us for the assistance.
Okay.
I think what Paul and Ann both said was pretty critical, and I think that's really what we all need to do as a board, is look at our contacts. Again, it was a wonderful thing that Senator Morrison was able to work with us, and whatever brought that about was the right timing, the right place. So we need to look at everybody that we have within our network to say,
Yep.
How can we help facilitate this?
Okay, let's all follow up on that in the coming days, and put our heads together and who knows whom, and work on that and try to put a program together. And again, I think it's great. AECom is doing a lot of work, and that's terrific. And let's push it. It may be a long shot, but $3.8 million is a nice target to have for a long shot.
Would it make sense to follow up with Julie Morrison again to see how she might be able to help?
I could, on this specific, on the FEMA grant, I could follow up and see if she has any connections there. I have spoke with her since our ribbon cutting ceremony. Actually ran into it another one, a building dedication for NSSRA, and spoke with her there about again, some potential future projects that we may have that we want to talk to her about. And she sounded pretty supportive in in helping us again in the future.
Okay. Anything else on the community engagement and this whole project issue? All right, in-person meetings. We had this question of whether we could start to look at having in-person meetings, whether the sound system would allow us, where we could have visitors, some visitors in person, other visitors on Zoom, commissioners and staff in person. I think a couple of issues have come up. Number one, that the infection rates, case rates, or whatever you want, case positivity in Lake County is rising. So the situation is going opposite the way that we would all hope it would be going. There were also some issues with the sound system. There are issues with what meetings we would be able, we'd have to basically do everything in person and not just the regular board meetings. So I have made a determination that we will continue to have all our meetings on Zoom. And when the situation changes, we will review that determination. Any questions or comments?
No, just the only comment I have is we went to this panel versus attendee because we had so many people, we couldn't support the video. Since like today, I see we have 3 attend. Can we go back to a meeting? But yeah, so that you can actually see who's in the attending. Is there a reason not to do that?
I think that we were, we talked to the village about what they were using, and I thought that they were using this. Well, this is what they recommended. Do they do it in a different way, where they show everybody, other visitors? Because this is what I talked to the assistant village manager, what he was recommending. So we actually did our Zoom upgrade based on that.
I don't know. I just know that we had gone to the attendees because there were 40 people in the audience and we couldn't support the video. That was just a question. I'm not asking for an answer. I just wondered
Yeah, I don't know.
if so we were doing this what the village was doing. It wasn't, there was, again, I thought it was because we couldn't support the video.
Yeah, this was, and I think Jeff spoke with them as well. But this was something that the village was using and that they recommended. It's, what is it called, Jeff? The webinar Zoom or something like that?
Yes. And one of the advantages to it is that it gives us more control over who is permitted to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we could at the beginning of the meeting say, kind of instruct any of the attendees, if you'd like to speak, here's how you do it. Like maybe give a little instruction, like you raise your hand and here's how you raise your hand if you'd like to speak. So that way, as we continue to remain on Zoom and we use this format, we make it clear how non-panelists can participate in the meeting when it's appropriate for them. That I think would be more welcoming and more instructive for the public.
Good idea.
Okay. Good. Can I please have a motion? I think we all know why we're having to do this. We've already approved the executive director's, John's, new compensation package. We have to do this again. Can I please have a motion to approve the executive director's compensation and contract?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. And my understanding, I probably should have brought it up before, this is retroactive to September, correct?
That's the way it was written in the.
Yes, that's the way it was written, retroactive to September, fine.
Yeah, the anniversary date.
Tina, do you need anything more from me now? You already have. You have everything you need for John's contract to go into effect immediately, correct?
Yes, you probably have to sign documents. We'll get that over to you.
I think there's
And
like a
we're good to go.
I think there's a one-page amendment to the contract.
That has to be redone because I signed something already.
Yeah, we already have that. The attorney sent that over, so we can, if it's once it's approved tonight, I'll send that to you and
Okay,
you can sign
all
that.
right, fine. Thank you. Okay, new business and action items. Can I please have a motion to approve the amended facility employee benefits package?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Do we need any discussion on this, or is this all clear to everybody?
Clear.
And we did go through this with the finance committee. a lot of these items, and we made sure that that what we're doing follows the IRS guidelines.
Okay, good. Fine, if there's no more discussion, Marcia, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber. Weber,
I think he's disconnected.
Oops.
President Greenfield,
Yes. Okay. Pay scale adjustment. Can I please have a motion to approve? And again, the Finance Administration Future Planning Committee recommended approving this. Scott's not on still, I guess. I guess his laptop died as well. With a 1.9% adjustment and a condensed version of the pay grade range. Can I please have a motion to approve a 1.9% adjustment and a condensed version of the 2022 pay grade range?
So moved, Beeler.
Second, Emily Lane.
All right, is there any discussion on this? Again, this is just,
I would just really quickly say this is, it's that 1.9% adjustment, top and bottom of the range. So it's just bumping it up by 1.9. This was recommended from this HR source that we use, and this it's just another way of trying to stay competitive and for us to be able to attract employees, which is very difficult to do right now.
okay, if there's no more discussion, Marcia, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber, President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, 2021 tax levy for the 2022 budget. In keeping with our new format, this one may get some discussion, Sue. However, please, can I please get a motion to accept the CPI increase for the 2021 tax levy of 1.4%? And this has been recommended by the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion.
I like the CPI better than last year's CPI.
Emily, somehow I had a feeling you were going to say something about this. Okay, are we all in agreement? I mean, I think we know what we're faced with, and 1.4% now. 2022 CPI is going to be much higher, but we all know what we're faced with here with salaries and so on, costs. So if there's no further discussion, Marcia, can I please have a roll call?
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber, President Greenfield.
Yes. Now this is a preliminary approval, and we actually will have a public meeting on this at our next meeting. So our next meeting will not be a committee of the whole meeting. It will be a special meeting so that we can have votes. And during that, or separate to the special meeting, actually, we hold a public hearing on this. And John, please correct me if I'm wrong on the procedure. And then following the public meeting, we will take another vote to give final approval to this. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's what we did last year. And Scott, do you have any recollection?
Yeah, so you need to You have to have 20 days between now and the public hearing. If you're going to have a public hearing at 1.4%, you're not required to have a public hearing on the tax levy. You can just approve it at another meeting, but you do have to give 20 days in between.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that you're going to make it with your next meeting.
Our next meeting is the 13th of December.
13th. Oh yeah, it does give you time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we went through this
earlier. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we went through this kind of, yeah.
Yep, you're okay.
So we don't have to have the public hearing then.
No, I know in the
do
past, the Park District has done that and done the black box notice, but the statute doesn't require it. If you want to do it, just so everyone is aware of it, you can definitely do it.
Okay. So we will do the final approval then at the December 13 special meeting, excuse me, which we will cancel the committee of the whole and schedule a special meeting in its place. Okay, budget draft. This is just the draft, so we are not approving the budget at this meeting. I believe the intention is to approve the draft at the special meeting. Is that correct, John?
Yes. Well, let's see. Do we have that on for? This is only for discussion only. There's no approval
Tonight
needed.
discussion, correct?
Yeah, you would approve it at the next one. So this, again, our intention was if there's any questions that we could answer tonight. Otherwise, if you want to email us any of your questions between now and the time that we would meet for you to approve it in December, we would get those questions answered for you.
Now, again, just to start out the discussion, I would like to say that, you know, it has always been the goal of the Park District Board to maintain a ratio of 25% of the ending fund balance to annual expenditures. And that's not only the goal of the Park District, but it's also a goal that lenders have and that ratings agencies have. And I would like to say that in 2019, which was the last quote unquote regular year we've had, the ratios, and we're primarily looking at the ratios for the general fund and the rec fund. And the ratios for both the rec fund and the general fund were approximately 15% in 2019. So we have gone 2 years during which we had COVID going. And for 2022, the budgeted ratio for both funds is in the neighborhood of 28%. And I give all kudos to staff for getting us there. That does not happen without a lot of work. It does not just automatically happen. And you know, my initial take on this budget is that we look at capital expenditures, we look at our regular expenditures, we look at very conservative estimates, I think, and we come out really in very, I think, good financial shape with the fund balances where they're supposed to be, and without sacrificing any of our programming or facilities. And so again, I just want to start out by congratulating staff on getting us there, because it was a lot of work, and the last 2 years especially. So that is my take. Now,
I would just say before we jump in, if there's any questions, you know, the staff was pretty, I would say fairly conservative, but not, you know, last year we prepared the budget with, you know, staying in phase 3 for so many months and then moving to phase 4 for the rest of the year at the late opening of the pool, et cetera. I think we've been able to adapt and adjust our programming and our facility usage. We see that the enrollment's still doing well in a lot of our preschool right now, the day camp over the summer. Our youth basketball has got about 120 kids in it. again, we're getting, we're around 2019 numbers for enrollment in some of these areas. Parents really want to get their kids in programs. You know, the biggest area, of course, is fitness. It's still lagging behind. People just aren't coming back in and feeling comfortable working out inside as much as they were in the past. And that's going to, I think, continue to drag on for a while. We are trying, you know, through promotional other, you know, ways to try to get that up as much as we can. But we didn't do the phased approaches for this. We basically kind of, in preparing this budget, did it under how we're operating today and continuing that and you know, knowing that we're in the pandemic, but being able to operate the way we are. That's how we kind of budgeted for next year. There were some, you know, the increases, you know, we talked about that. The minimum wage goes up $1 in January, and that will go up every January, $1 through 2025. So that's going to continue, but that's caused some of the compression. So that's helped that we're making those adjustments to the pay scale that we talked about earlier. And also with those, I think what the Finance Committee had approved for increases this year, we have, it's a targeted 3% merit increase, but up to 5% if needed for that, say, market adjustment to try to get any individual perhaps, you know, to a little bit more competitive spot if needed. So that will be coming to the board for approval in December as well, that merit increase. But anyway, those were some of the things that we took into effect when we took into account as we prepared the budget. And now I guess we're ready if you have any questions for us this evening.
I think the first thing is, my understanding is when we look at taxes, tax revenue for the budget, that's a timing issue where the taxes are supposed to go down in 2022.
Correct. So since we were like for this year, we received some of our tax revenue from 2020 in 2021, and it was too late to move back because the audit was already done. That's the main reason why, because we received them so late.
Actually got a little too much for this year because it wasn't spread out. We're still keeping it.
You're keeping it, yeah. Please do, John. And I also saw that we maintain, or we go back to this concept in a sense of taking out $100,000 from the general fund every year from 2023 on, and $125,000 from the rec fund, which is not purposed to anything. It's just, I think the concept was originally put in to go towards the beach renovation project. And you've maintained that, and you still have the ending fund goals meeting the 25% target.
And we did go through the budget in you know, more detail, and we kind of walked through it with the Finance Committee, who had a number of good questions and comments. We had to go back and make a few changes as a result of that meeting. We found that the CARES Act money had been counted twice in a miscellaneous revenue account. So that was corrected, and a few other things. So I appreciate the attention and the effort that the Finance Committee put into helping us go through and make the document better and a little bit more accurate.
Could we talk through, starting on a high level, the capital improvement projects proposed for 2022?
Sure.
And what page would you refer us to in the draft budget? When I attended the finance committee meeting, I saw it there, but which one would it be? What page would it be on here?
Oh, it's on page 18. It's not as in detail as we gave the finance committee of the specific items. I do have a list of the specific items. We have a walking pathway at Artesian Park, north shelter staircase at the beach, north edge retaining wall at the beach, gymnasium roof replacement, early childhood flooring, carpet replacement, preschool, carpet replacement entrance and offices, carpet replacement gymnasium, fire protection nitrogen system at the rec center, surge pit at the pool, golf has a ground master, which is, I believe is a mower, golf has a triplex mower, and the maintenance garage roof at park maintenance. So I can send that list out.
And one of the things I would note on that, the maintenance garage roof, we saved, we've cut back quite a bit on that. I know Commissioner Ramo was questioning that. We took a closer look, and Noah has met with a contractor and looked at a method that could repair the leaks and extend the life and save quite a bit of money on the maintenance roof. So that we also moved a few things around and just re-examining what was needed. So we saved probably about $100,000 off in some of the capital that was proposed for next year.
So I know you just ran through them, Josh, on high level, so thank you, because that's what I asked for. I appreciate that. The professional planning for 30,000, is that the consultant, the Beyond Your Base?
So that we just put an estimated a number. That's not for that. That's in the general fund. You'll see 24,000 in professional planning in the general fund. That was for possible wetland studies that if we decide to go do any studies in that route, and any other capital.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but there were just talk, of the board of possibly hiring a consultant to try to provide more accurate information to the task force. So we're just plugging a number in there to budget for that.
And then the 25,000 for park maintenance, Josh, is that what you were talking about as far as instead of a roof replacement, that's the repairs?
Yeah, that's for the roof repair.
What was the number before we decided to repair instead of replace?
It was 95, so $70,000 difference.
So
Nice
Noah,
job,
do you want to touch on that, Noah, really quickly?
Certainly. Yes, instead of a full tear off and replacement, the village has hired the company in the past, Waukegan Roofing. They do a process where it's a sealant over the existing roof that fills in all the gaps and holes, and should get us a stretch of life after it's done for probably about 20 years. So instead of a full replace, it's a repair. Not necessarily a full case of Flex Seal, but we're able to get it fixed.
Fantastic. And then what is the drill down on the 237,000 for the rec center?
Yeah, so we have the rec center. We have a gymnasium roof replacement for 125,000. Early childhood flooring for 22,000. Preschool carpet replacement 23,000. Entrance and office carpet replacement for 25,000. Gymnasium carpet replacement for 24,000, and fire protection nitrogen system for 18,000.
And that list was actually larger for the rec center, and we've just kind of again walked through each of those items one by one with Noah, Micah, Jim, Josh, myself, and evaluating, do we need to do the key fobs or the curtain or the carpeting in this area, the flooring in that area, and a lot of that, and try to evaluate what could be, what we could wait a little bit longer on, what needs to be done now. We're seeing that the use of the building is picking up again. Last year it was pretty quiet in the first year of COVID. It's especially the gymnasium, but now this year it's picking up and it's causing more wear on the floor that have to be resurfaced and things like that. So we've spent quite a bit of time going over the list.
Got it. And I'm sure you guys went out and received a couple of quotes and obviously you're knowledgeable as to what these things cost. I'm just wondering, kind of along the lines of kind of taking another look at, like you did at the park maintenance roof, carpet seems really expensive. 237,000 obviously is a ton of money. And are we getting the best prices for what they are?
And these are just budgets, right?
Yeah.
And just, we're just allocating some money, and we've gone through these plans with our 10-year master capital plan in the past, and we revise them over time. So these aren't like hard, fast things, right? We're just kind of a birth of, kind of a gap here, what is estimated.
So like that's a very good point. What we did with that, with the roof for the maintenance is sort of what we would do with a lot of these things as we go to do that. Now we knew that there was, we were looking for a way to save money there. And so Noah reached out to that contract after talking to the village and had the contractor come in and provide that quote. But we would do that with each of these areas. For right now, most of those are just estimates that are plugged in. Some came from an architect who put those together. But yeah, we would look for competitive pricing and look for ways to save money when we actually do the project.
Great. And then my last question would be about the golf course or the golf club expenditures for 75,000. Josh, can you talk about that?
Yeah,
so more specifically?
Yeah, we met with Golf Visions a couple times in the past month. And these were just 2 mowers they said they would need for the next season. One's a Groundmaster and one's a triplex mower. I don't know if Noah could go into detail on what those are used for, maybe.
Sure. The triplex is a greens mower that they have one unit that's starting to fail, so they needs to be replaced. As part of the contract, the capital expenditures obviously come to us. We get to decide which needs to be replaced, which doesn't. But that was one that we felt operationally is important for them, so to be able to cut the greens on a regular basis. The other is a large rough mower that their current unit is also starting to go bad. So in order to keep up with the rough mowing of the course, it needs to be replaced. So those are the 2 items that we felt capital-wise would be reasonable expenditures to put forward.
And with the triplex mower, there's 4 of those. And so it was replacing one every couple of years, trying to spread that cost out over time. So we don't get to the point where we have to buy 4 $35,000 mowers in 1 year.
So how do these capital expenditures match up with what we had talked about a meeting or 2 ago about wanting to renegotiate our current contract with Golf Visions as it pertains to maybe them taking on some of the capital expenditures?
I think it does, it is connected to that conversation, and I've met with Golf Visions and proposed that, renegotiating the terms of the current, license agreement. And as you might expect, the first thing that they asked for was sure, if we can get the 5-year extension. Told them, of course, that the board had specifically wanted us to focus on the current contract and not address any future contracts. So they did say that they would go back and take a look and see if they could come back to us with something that would work. So they didn't say no, and they didn't say yes. They said that they would go back and take a look at that. And if they did start to do that, during the current contract, then that is money that's going to help with those immediate capital needs.
Thank you for that. I think I would offer that we consider tabling the 75,000 expenditure for new equipment and instead exploring the option of repairing the existing equipment, seeing that we are seriously considering the future of the golf course past 2023. And at the same time, we're in discussions with Golf Visions about possibly taking on some of the capital expenditures. I just don't see how, you know, $75,000 expenditure on new equipment would be a good way to spend capital resources at this point in time. So that's just my opinion, you know, on that expenditure. You know, I mean, if we buy 2 golf course mowers and we don't have a golf course 3 years from now, then it would be not a good way to spend money. So.
Well, and I would make a comment first that the capital expenditure budget always changes during the year. Something comes up that we need to do. We look at something else that we end up pushing off a year. You know, it never, we don't know what's going to be different, but I can almost guarantee you 100% that we won't have all of these things done a year from now. So there's always some flux in the capital budget market. In the meantime, though, we have a golf course. We have a contract to run that golf course for 2 years. If the equipment can be repaired, then that's one issue. Certainly, we're trying to do what we can with Golf Visions and hoping to come up with a way where we can get them more involved in paying for some of these capital expenditures. So that doesn't change. But I think we have to recognize we have a golf course. And
yeah, I understand.
Now we have a golf course. We can't let the golf course, you know, get ruined. You can't say we can't cut the greens.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not saying that.
So that people that don't want to play on the golf course, we end up ruining the golf course. So
well, without a doubt. So obviously I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is perhaps we table the expenditure and explore repairing the existing equipment before buying new equipment, knowing that we're in discussions about the future of the golf course.
Noah, are you in charge of the equipment?
In what aspect, please, Scott?
Maintenance? Or is that fall
No.
on Golf Visions?
That falls on Golf Visions.
Okay. Has Golf Visions tried to repair this to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. Do you know what the expected lifespan is of, or usable life of each of these vehicles?
The triplex, yes, usually within that 15 to 18 year range, which I think it's, I'd have to look at the exact date of the piece of equipment, but I know it's getting near its end of life as far as.
I guess my my question with that is like if it's at the end of its expected life, I think we have to honor the Golf Visions contract. My second point to that would be what can we reasonably expect in the for a used mower, in 2 to 3 years. That's more of a question. Is it like 50 cents on the dollar? 20, 70? Right.
Because then if we bought it, obviously, if we bought it, we own it, right?
Correct. This is our equipment.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if it has 15-year expected life and it's used for 13, I would think that we would get no less than 60 cents on the dollar for something like that. But that's just kind of back of the envelope. Do you have any experience with kind of selling this equipment before, or what it goes for?
No, typically, because when we've bought equipment in the past, we run it until the wheels fall off.
For sure.
We don't. We typically don't buy a piece of equipment and then try to resell it a couple years later. We push it to its breaking point. So to say I don't have a lot of experience with buying something, having it for 2 years, and then turning around and trying to put it in. Although a lot of this type of equipment does have high resale value. Let's say we were to buy a brand new piece of equipment and sell it 3 years from now, the resale value is still really good on those types of. I think once you get past kind of that 8-year mark, you're looking at a less of a return on investment, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and I've actually kind of dove into the secondary market for machines that have high useful life, like very expensive CNC machines, and they're a lot of times if they're maintained well, you'll get 90 cents on the dollar in like 10 years. And that's more to do with the machine itself still working, and also due to supply chain issues. I wouldn't be surprised if we couldn't get a tractor right now, you know, until whatever, spring next year. I mean, John Deere was on strike for a while, so you know, we got to kind of, I guess, keep all of this in mind before making any type of recommendation.
That's also very accurate, particularly with any sort of automotive industrial market. I know the golf carts, when we talked about the golf cart purchase and lease and selling of our carts, I mean, that was a 9-month wait that they were told just to get new carts. So
we just checked the spreadsheet on that one. I think that if it's accurate, it's a 2000, the one that they want to replace. So that would be 21 years old.
push it to the end.
All right, do we have any other comments or questions about this? Again, we will look to approve the budget at the next meeting. John has sent that email out to everybody today that if you have further questions, please contact him with those specific questions. Okay. Going to the next item, the regular board and committee of the whole meeting dates. And as I get down to these dates, so we've gone over the various holidays and so on. We've stuck with the fourth Monday of each month for the regular meeting and the second Monday of each month for the committee of the whole meetings. Those have been changed for various holidays and vacation periods. I just wanted to check again, and I'm trying to get to the page.
Page 59.
59. Oh, I'm looking at.
You have to go out of the budget.
If I look at the package and not the budget, then I might find it. Sorry.
Yeah, they're separate.
I just had a question. That December 12th date for the regular board meeting does anyone know the school holiday? I mean, is December 19th during the school holidays?
I would think that December 19th would be the first day, but I haven't pulled up the calendar yet. I'm not sure if they know it even.
Okay. All right, that was the only question I had.
I have a question. We did make a motion, but so this is a conversation before the motion. But I had talked to John about this earlier. It's probably too late to change now, but one of the things that I noticed when I first became a commissioner is that for some reason, all the pertinent board meetings of both the village and the park district are on the exact same day at the exact same time. Makes it really hard for individuals to attend both. And I wondered if there was a reason for those who've been on the board for a long time. And if not, is there a reason not to consider changing the date? I recognize that it's a big deal to change the date, but wanted to throw it out there for conversation if anybody was vehemently opposed to it, or if there was a reason to keep it this way.
Well, originally, Sue, the board meetings, the regular board meetings were the third Monday of each month. And committee of the whole was the first Monday. But the third Monday of the month, we did not have enough time to get the financials from the previous month finished and prepared in time for the board meeting.
That makes sense.
So we had to go back 2 months in financials. We couldn't go back to the prior month. We were going back 2 months to the financials. So we decided, and relatively recently, I think it was last year sometime, because of that, we decided to move the regular meetings to the fourth Monday and then the committee of the whole to the second Monday. I understand your point, and you know, I know it. I think the village, if I'm not mistaken, they have the same issue with their finances.
And that makes perfect sense. Josh might prefer it to give him a little bit more time to get the financials done. If it could be 2 months. Is there any reason not to have it on a different day of the week? Again, I'm not saying we have to change it for 2022, but I'd like to have a conversation around it to think maybe in the future, because I think it makes sense to be, you talk about transparency available for people to be able to attend. So I don't know, is there a reason why it's Monday nights?
I couldn't tell you.
Mondays are already tiring, so let's make them a little bit more tiring, meetings like this. Sorry, I'm a little jaded at the moment. I mean, yeah, I since this is recorded, I'm not going to say what I really think. But I mean, Monday or Tuesday, I don't really see much of a difference. If we want to consider moving it so, you know, people can attend both.
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Maybe consideration for 2023. Again, I don't want to disrupt everything, but we'll see how 2022 goes. I'll bring it up again before the end of the year so we can have some conversation around it if we think it's necessary. But I think it is nice to make it available for people. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I don't think there's any magic to a Monday night.
Yeah. People are very scheduled, so I don't think it's easy to move a date. You know, we all carve our life to be available. So let's not do it 2022, but I would like to consider it for 2023.
All right, can I then, and I apologize for being out of order, but can I please have a motion to approve the schedule of regular and committee of the whole meetings for the year 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, next, the audit contract. Can I please have a motion to approve the 3-year contract agreement from Lauterbach and Amann LLP for our audit?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Scott, do you want to go over this briefly, please?
John did a fantastic job negotiating us a lower rate on our audit. Lauterbach and Amann have been doing it as long as I've been a board member, and I think they do a nice job. They approached us for an extension of their contracts. We countered, and we have this solution that you see in front of you.
Which I agree is great, I think.
Better than paying more.
I think it's great. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about this? Okay.
It looks good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, that takes care of new business. Written communications. Do we have any community comments or correspondence, John?
I only thing I have that I'm going to send out is just a copy of the golf course and the stormwater discussion related emails. I'm going to send that out as a PDF to all the board members. But that's all I have to mention this evening.
Okay. If there is no further business, can I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield,
Yes.
8:40.
Thank you all very much. Jennifer, you beat us by 5 minutes. You still have the record.